Hi everyone, I'm Karen Robinson from littlepaperparty.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Australia, and today I am back with the second project in my 12 Days of Christmas series this year. And today I have a stamper stack, so a stack of cards that are quick and easy to make. And this is the card that I have made, I've designed and made, and I'm not necessarily going to go through making cards and stuff because it's very basic and you don't really need to see that. It's more about how I kind of came up with the design or the idea of this style of card, which I've made before. That's a quick and easy way to make cards, and you can use kind of anything that you like. So the main focal point of this is my nice big sentiment. I think that these are great for making bulk cards with because they just take up most of the card and you don't really need to add anything else to them. So this one I have gotten from Christmas Means More stamp set, which is in the current mini catalogue, and it has a few other nice big sentiments as well that you could use in exactly the same way, but I just chose this one. I like the sentiment I like the font, and it worked well for what I wanted. And then on the inside I did add another sentiment. I quite often don't add sentiments, but I did this year, so I added this one from Wrapped in Christmas. And then I added this holly from the first stamp set just in the corner for a little bit of decoration. I just thought that this went well with the sentiment on the outside, the let the joy of the season fill your heart, kind of, you know, rather than lots of presents. So those are the stamp sets that I used for my card. Okay, so the basic layout of the card I like to keep really simple, but I do want something going on in the background. I don't want it to be boring, and that's where pattern paper comes in. So I used the Plaid Tidings DSP, which I've used a lot. If you see my 12 weeks of Halloween, I use it all the time, but there are actually Christmas designs in there as well. So I went through and picked out 3 that I liked. There are more than this. I just picked out 3 that I liked, and then I pulled the coordinating cardstock for them as well. So I pulled basic black, cherry cobbler, shaded spruce, crumb cake. Even though crumb cake isn't one of the colors in there, I did pull that, and then white. And then I kind of held them up near the cardstock, and then I eliminated a couple. I decided not to use basic black and whisper white, seeing as how I was stamping on such a big white background. So I've just used the black, the spruce, and the cherry cobbler. So these are the 3 cards kind of with their bases and their layers that I ended up with, and then they've got obviously a white layer on the inside as well. So after that I decided to choose my bases, choose my layers and my contrast that I liked, and then I started cutting down my cardstock. I used dies to cut the layers on the front and the layer on the inside. I used locally sourced dies. I am in Australia. I have A4 cardstock, and so these are suitable for A4 cards, but you possibly have dies in your stash that are suitable for whatever cardstock you might use, but you don't have to use dies for those layers, and it will be even quicker if you don't use them. Just use your trimmer, guillotine, whatever you're using to cut your cardstock, and then just cut them down, you know, making them that 1/4 inch or 1/2 centimeter smaller, depending on what measurements you work in. Layer them together, they'll work perfectly well. It'll look beautiful. It'll still look really, really nice. I have the dies. I like die cutting, but that is extra time and it is an extra step that you can save, you know, doing that. All right, then for my sentiments, I was stamping them, so I set up my stamparatus to make it quicker and easier. So the stamparatus is Stampin' Up! Stamp Positioner. It comes with 2 plates. It's hinged so that you can rotate them, so you can end up with actually like setting up 4 different stamps. So it's really good for multiple stamping or multi-step stamping if you have an image with lots of different layers, because you can set them up and do it really easily. I set them up for how I wanted to set them up for my my stamping. So I've got my main sentiment in here, so that meant as I used Memento black ink, I could stamp it multiple times to get the depth of color that I wanted. And then for the insides, I set up, this is a cling, red rubber cling stamp, and then this other one is photopolymer as well, but I set them up on the same page. The circle and the scallop circle on the front, I used these dies which are in our annual catalogue. I used the Stitch Shapes framelets for the sentiment, and then for this little scalloped outside part, I used the layering circles framelets. I used the largest circles from both of those sets. To assemble these, I just use Tombow. I want to keep them flat. I want to keep them easy to post, reasonably flat, but easy to post. So I've just assembled my layers with Tombow, and same on the inside, so that's all nice and flat. Then this layer, so I've got a couple more here that are ready to go. So I've got my inners already in there, and I've done the outside. So to put this onto my glitter cardstock, you can either use dimensionals and pop it up, which I do a lot, which is a good way to adhere. Glitter cardstock can be a little bit finicky, but I don't know, for some reason I didn't want it that way. I want to pop up this entire layer. So I am going to use a combination of tear and tape, and I'm going to use some multi-purpose glue as well, which you can use together. You can definitely use them together if you want to. And yeah, a few things that maybe just are a little bit finicky when you try to adhere something to them, like glitter paper, for example. That is a good way around that if you don't want to use dimension on it. So I've used quite a bit of tear and tape. I want to be generous because, like I said, glitter paper tends to be a bit finicky to adhere to. I'll remove my backing, move that out of the way. Grab my Tombow. And I'm going to be reasonably generous with this, not putting it anywhere near my stitched outline because it can seep through. And then I'm going to pop that over the top of my glitter piece. The advantage of having the Tombow too is it makes it a little bit slippery, so I have a little bit of room if I need to like maneuver it a little bit if I haven't got it lined up perfectly, which I actually do this time, which is a miracle. And then I put it to one side, and then I just popped a block on it to keep it flat, to, you know, just press them together and yeah, until it kind of dries well. To add a little pop of color on here, I did color in the leaves with my Shaded Spruce blends, and I did color in, you'll see on here, if that's still in the shop, I'm not sure. On here, I did color in the berries with Cherry Cobbler, but then I decided I wanted a little bit more sparkle, so I just ended up using rhinestones. So in future ones, I won't bother coloring those in. I will just put the rhinestones on because you're not going to see it. So, you know, it just once again saves you just even a few seconds of time, but that all adds up to be quite a bit. Okay, so after that, I did decide to pop this up. So hopefully this is attached enough. So we'll just grab a card. I used dimensionals to pop it up onto my actual card front. I'm quite generous with my dimensionals. I don't want, this is the focal image of my card and I don't want it to sag. So I don't mind adding a few more when it's possibly necessary. Take all the backings off. And then I put this towards the center of my card. Or maybe around the center of my card, and trying to get it straight. I love having the grid paper because it helps my card keep straight, and just, you know, it's just a visual guide to kind of keep everything in line. And also because this is the perfectly plaid too, it has lines on it as well, which is really good. If you've cut them straight, of course, which is always optional. Then the very last touch, so I added some rhinestones. I'll pop these on. I'm actually going to add, these are the Holiday Rhinestone Basic Jewels, which come in multiple colors, but I want to use the red rhinestones that are in the annual catalog. I didn't have any, so I thought I'll use these, but I've got some of the red ones coming, and you can just fit 3 over the berries. And I like it. It adds just a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of extra dimension, and you've got to squish them up really close together, but that's okay. So yes, so I need to get some red rhinestones because I won't have enough of these to make the amount of this particular style of card that I'm going to make. So the last thing I did want a little bit more sparkle. Actually, a couple of things. So I did grab my Wink of Stella and I added it to the leaves. So it is very subtle, but it does, when the light catches it, you can see the shimmer and the sparkle. It's lovely. And I don't know, I feel it intensifies the color of the green a bit. Because I just have those couple of pops of color on my sentiment, I think it needs it. And then on the inside, I've already done the inside, I added Wink of Stella to the leaves and the berries as well for a little bit of sparkle. And just make sure after you've used it on anything colored that you just kind of clean it off to get any excess ink off. And then the very last thing was a bow at the top. I decided to use the glittered organdy ribbon, which is in the annual catalogue. This is beautiful. It went with the black sentiment, the black glitter paper that I chose, and I already pre-tied my bows, so I've just pre-tied them straight off the roll. It's a really economical way of using your ribbon. I've pre-tied them and kind of fussed around with them, and then to get to the size I want. There's a few ways you can attach this. I'm actually going to use a multi-medium mat. I'm very fussy about my bows and things coming off. I want it to arrive to the recipient the same way that I put it in, and this is really strong. You could probably use the fine tip glue pen as well, which is really strong. I just find that this dries a bit quicker, and I was using it before that came out and I'm just happy with it. So I just put a little bit on the back of my, actually I'm going to put it at the top here, on the top of my thing. You could do this before you adhere this on. I don't know why I've done it afterwards. I think it probably makes it more complicated. Pop your bow on, and then I might come back. I can always come back and trim my edges. So I'm popping the center of my bow on, and then I'm actually going to grab a pair of reverse tweezers and pop it underneath to hold it in place until it dries. But when it does dry, it's very secure. It's nice and secure. Oops, I'm actually undoing my bow. It's nice and secure. It's very secure. It's not coming off. That is everything for today. That is a quick and easy card. Big sentiments are a great to use for quick and easy cards. They are the focal point. They're easy to do. You don't have to really worry about coloring them. There's a couple of pops of color on this. Some of them there won't be any. Add them with some paper, which is easy to cut, and yep, and then you can just layer them up and you've got a whole stack of cards in a very short amount of time. Well, I hope you liked today's project, and I will see you in a few days with number 3. Okay, bye.